Hello, everybody, and welcome to Answer the Call. Today's topic is insurance. I do want to talk a little bit about last week's episode. Is anything in Star Citizen not for sale? I think the topic wasn't really that. It was a little bit more just how do we shift Star Citizen's development away from funding, or Star Citizen's funding from the way that it affects the development. And I thought we actually had some really good callers that had some really good insight. We had a lot of really good and negative feedback that, ends up being good. Sometimes, mean feedback is good as well. So one of the best bits of feedback I got was from a Reddit poster that said, I really wish Twerk would go back and talk about last week's episode for a little bit at the beginning of the show and discuss, the post-show comments and what people said and what their thoughts were. Now, I'm not as prepared as I would have liked to be. I ended up working a lot more this week than I thought I was going to. So, I will not do that today, but thank you to that Reddit poster for giving me that feedback. I wish I could give you the proper recognition that you deserve, because it was really, really good feedback. So at the start of every episode from now on, starting next week, we're going to discuss last week's episode for a few minutes and kind of go back into your feedback from the prior episode. And I'm going to overlay the Reddit comment and the YouTube comment on stream. I think it'll be really, really good. So yes, I like that feedback. We're going to do that. I do want to talk a little bit about last week. I got a lot of comments saying that I'm a whiner or that I don't let the callers speak enough. I definitely get I don't get the callers speak enough. I'm very passionate about what I think, and for whatever reason, sometimes I feel like I have to convince the caller that I'm correct. That's not really what this show should be about. It should just be about you sharing your opinion, and I will ask questions that are going to open up whatever flaws I think are in their argument, but I think I have to just give them more of the floor more often. So I definitely got that from last week's feedback and stuff like that. But I don't think I'm a whiner. I think I'm passionate. I think I want this game to be a certain way. My opinion is my opinion. And I, didn't really appreciate a lot of those comments. And at the same time, I also understand where they're coming from. A lot of the topics that we discuss here are controversial, or they try to create a controversy around a topic. That isn't always necessarily how I feel about a certain topic, right? I will sometimes try to create a discussion about something. So I will take a certain view that will cause more of a discussion on either side, So, but 99.9% of the time, I've taken a perspective or a argument on the side that I believe the game should be this way, or I am not happy with the way things are steering. And one of those topics is insurance. I'm nervous about it. Now, ship insurance is where we're at. We have it. We pretty much know what it is. There is an insurance FAQ on the Star Citizen website. It doesn't really go into super depth on what it is, but basically it's what we've been talking about. It's what they've been talking about for years, where it's a very nominal fee to maintain your ship so you don't lose it, right? One thing we also know, but I don't know for sure, is at some point it was mentioned by a dev somewhere. I actually did my But the reason I'm not as prepared as I should be is because I was researching insurance a little bit more than bringing on the past topics, and I looked far and wide for this comment, and I could not find it anywhere. Where anything that we buy for real money, apparently we're not going to lose it. So I was looking for that to actually confirm that, but it's tough. So if we have purchased a ship on the website, we will never lose that ship unless we give it away or something like that. It's like account bound is how I understand it. So is there any need for insurance? How does insurance work for that? How does LTI come into play if that's the case? It's very weird, okay? So it basically, like, if that's true, then LTI is pointless. Sort of. Because you'll still have to pay for insurance on a ship in-game, but you won't actually lose it. It's very weird. So anyway, is LTI a sham then? Is that even a real thing? I don't know. We'll start out with that, but that's not really what the topic is today. The topic is more along the lines of ship insurance on a non-purchased game package or ship, because let's leave that bubble out there where it is, because we don't know enough about it and don't understand enough about it to discuss it really. Now, before we get into this topic fully, this is something I want everybody to understand, okay? When we discuss a topic on Answer the Call, specifically, we are talking long term. We are talking the release of the game. We are talking when the game is not in the state that it is now. I see so many comments, and it drives me nuts, about, well, the game's an alpha, so why does it matter? Because we're not talking about now. We're talking about getting the groundwork now for the future. So you build out things now how you want them to be in the future, and not the present necessarily, right? So for today, we're talking about insurance and how we want to see it in the future, okay? We have LTI in the game now. The way Star Citizen works with insurance in the current game is LTI. You have it. You can never lose your ship. You never have to pay a fee for it unless you want to speed up the process. Then you pay a little bit of money to get it there, okay? For ship insurance, there are no gaps in it either. And this is something that was discussed earlier in the week. I talked about it on Discord with just some of the guys. Is one thing that we would like to see is if you go outside of a certain area or you go to certain areas, that there will be a gap in that insurance. That was not in the insurance FAQ on the website. It was not very detailed. So we're still kind of speculating and guessing here, but this is what I would like to see personally, and I kind of want to hear your thoughts about it, is if I go to unlawful space, let's call it unlawful space, or if I go to some place that an insurance company necessarily wouldn't be comfortable insuring you, then you're not insured in that area. You're at risk. And then what Star Citizen needs to do is say, well, in this area that's risky, there's this really good stuff. Risk and reward. That is the discussion today. Is insurance is the key factor in risk versus reward. If there is not enough risk, then there's not really, the reward doesn't feel as good, right? And then maybe you don't have like this long-lasting, amazing game. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. My personal opinion is I really like risk and reward in video games. I really, really, really like to feel my blood pump when I'm in an area that is dangerous and that I might lose all of my stuff. I love that heart-pumping, heart-racing feeling, right? I'm doing something dangerous. There's a massive reward behind it. If I achieve it, it feels amazing. If I die, I had a heart-pumping, crazy experience where I got my butt kicked by somebody else. But in the end, for me, that's exciting. That's what I want from the game is that, okay? So let's start with that. So having these areas with high risk but also high reward are really important. Another thing that was mentioned, this was by these things were all pretty much in a discussion with me and a friend of mine, French Tickler, is also tiers of insurance. And we could discuss what the tiers should maybe be like. We also discussed Escape from Tarkov insurance. And this will go into something else that I bring up in just a minute. Right now we're on ship insurance. Ship insurance will be slightly different, I think. But maybe you can apply this to it as well. So the thing that made me bring up this discussion is last week's RTV, not this current week, but last week's RTV, we heard with Todd Pappy, we heard them mention item insurance. And that's where I started to get concerned for a number of factors. We've heard them discuss two things that concern me about insurance as far as items go, and ships even, is we know that the current insurance that we have in game is base insurance. You get your ship back at its base, no upgrades if you die. Okay? So right now, there's massive risk. There really isn't any reward in the game currently, but there is massive risk if you die. Bugs and all, you lose those ship components and you can't get them back, and they're expensive, right? So you feel that, but the thing about it is you don't really have that reward at the end of the tunnel, so I don't think you really get that heart-pumping experience just yet. So we'll start out with this. We'll start out with the fact that we've heard them discuss that you possibly will be buying ships that you can upgrade on the website. And through that, your base ship will be stronger than what a base ship would normally be. So we have to wonder, what kind of items will they sell, all those things. All that's speculative and probably isn't important. But so long as you're able to upgrade your ship on the website and your base is better, then now where's the risk? If you're actually able to buy all the components on the website, where's the risk? So hopefully they don't allow us to buy the best items and stuff like that, and they leave something for the game. That was more of a topic from last week. Now, item insurance. This has to be really done well, because we know that we don't really feel loss right now with ship insurance because we get our ship back. But the item insurance, if they add that to it, there's a number of factors that can come into play. Should it be really expensive? Should we do the same thing where some areas aren't insured? Should we do it like Escape from Tarkov, where you go to an insurance company and you say, I would like to insure these components. Not this one, but yeah, this one. And not that one, but yeah, this one. And they say, okay, well, that'll cost 10,000 credits or 100,000 credits, whatever. The amount doesn't matter. They say, okay, we'll insure it for that much. And how ETF works, or EFT works, is if you die and nobody picked up your items that you had insured for a certain amount of time, it's almost like they send an insurance agent out and they go and pick those items back and bring them back. So, let's say I insure these guns and my ship was boarded, but they only took my cargo. Then the insurance company would go out and find my ship items and bring them back to me. But if they cleaned my ship out and took all the items off of it, then I wouldn't get them back. And I kind of like that, because part of the thing that I don't really like about the insurance mechanic currently is if I gave my ship to, let's say, a random person, and because he seems like a nice guy, and then I file an insurance claim, I've essentially duped that ship now. So let's say it was a freelancer. I've now duped my ship, and I have two. There's an extra freelancer that never really should have been there, right? And I don't want to see the same thing happen with ship components is all, okay? So that's kind of where my thought process is. And now we also have heard cargo insurance as well. So, I think it all falls in line. I kind of given my opinion on what I think about insurance and where I want to see it go. But I kind of want to leave that out there, and I want to see what you guys think insurance should be, and then maybe throughout the show I'll kind of give a little more insight into what I would like as we discuss it further. So I think this is a really, really, really important topic for Star Citizen and CIG and the devs to kind of hear our opinions on, and as they're building this out as we speak, right? So insurance is something that's iterating, is going to iterate over time as we get more persistence and so on. So I think it's really important, and it's so important for that risk versus reward gameplay. So with that said, we have a little bit of a queue now. So I'm going to bring in our first caller. His name or her name is Kerradeph. I'm 99% sure it's a he. I just we've had them on the show before, but I'm memory is not good. Hello, Kerradeph. Welcome to Answer the Call. Kerradeph, can you hear me?
Yep.
There you go. Welcome to Answer the Call. How are you? And what do you think? What do you think about chip insurance, or not chip insurance? Insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, you did cover a fair amount of what I was thinking about, which is, yeah, we're not quite sure where it'll go. Lifetime insurance and non-lifetime insurance, how that will be played. I was actually trying to find the same quote as well as a few other things. So yeah, with non-lifetime insurance, especially with the ones where you can't get lifetime insurance on it. So like the special packages, Saber Raven and Mustang Omega.
Yeah.
You can't get lifetime insurance on those. So is there going to be some aspect of that where having gotten the package gives you a significant advantage over people in game? Will those ships be available in game? So will having that quasi lifetime insurance give you some benefit?
Like, what does that mean? You know, like maybe, but that's one thing where we don't know what a pledge means in terms of insurance anymore. And I mean, if you cannot lose a ship that you paid for, what is LTI then?
So yeah, I was trying to find that
Weird.
quote. I got a little bit distracted from what you're saying right near the end before you brought me in.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, I don't know if I've seen the exact quote, but from what I've heard is with lifetime insurance, it's basically how it is in game right now. Without lifetime insurance, there will be some deductible you need to pay on top of, the recovery cost. So you won't necessarily be buying a new ship outright, but you would have to pay probably a, reasonably significant chunk of the cost of the ship to get it back.
Or you just still have to pay some sort of a monthly fee, but the ship could be like impounded and it doesn't actually disappear from the game. Like the whole thing about it now, if I remember correctly, and I don't want to be stuck on this subject too long, is that somebody sent a ticket in. This I'm trying to remember. I could be completely wrong. Somebody sent a ticket in to CIG and said, I spent all this money on these ships, but not all my ships have LTI. Like, am I going to lose them? And the person who responded to the ticket said, you will not lose anything you pledge for in Star Citizen. And that guy went straight to Reddit. And then everybody took it as like, what the fuck? And then, yeah. So I don't know what is happening there.
The speculation I've heard on that is because of legal issues with them having received money for something and then the person not getting to keep it. In certain countries. I'm not sure about that, but yeah, that was one of the topics I thought about, and you kind of touched on it, so I thought I would bring that up. The other aspect, which you did touch on, is having ships in a risky area and the potential of losing those ships and not having insurance on them. And that was actually covered. That was another one that I was trying to find, was there were 5 tiers, or like multiple tiers. I know it goes up to 5, where at tier 5, it's basically if you lose a ship here, you get no insurance.
Yeah.
LTI is exempt from that. You get insurance because it's LTI. But yeah, it's, you have to pay a whole bunch for tier 4 insurance, but that means you can go in tier 1 through 4 systems, but you can pay a little tiny bit for tier 1 insurance, and you could stay in, Stanton, and you'd be fine. And
yeah, and what I really like about that, and this was a discussion that I had on Thursday on my way to work on Discord, and in the meantime, I'm gonna bring up on screen the actual quote from that dev. Twitch chat found it for us.
Nice.
So, real quick, we'll go over it, and then I'll go into responding to what you said. If something that you own is destroyed, say a constellation that only has 3 months of insurance and it has run out before it was destroyed, you will need to pay more to have it replaced in the game, but it won't be permanently removed from your account. For items like weapon shields, etc., we're still working out how insurance will cover these items that aren't included with the base ship, but it won't be a case of them being gone for good. So anything that you pledge will be account bound, but you may have to work out something in game to get them back. So that's the difference between lifetime insurance and 3 months of insurance on a pledge. So all of that makes sense, and I'm quite fine with it. I don't really have any issues with that, but I'm pretty sure there was some kind of drama around that at some point, but I don't remember really. But yeah, so with what you said, what I love about the tiered idea, and this wasn't something that
Just lost your audio.
There you go. How do I sound now?
Fine.
Okay, everything's back, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I was having some audio problems, so I went and looked why this wasn't up, and that's why my mic works the way it was. Apologize, everybody. Anyway, back to the point, is the reason that I love the tiered system is it creates a barrier of entry for non-casual players and casual players, and I don't want to use that as like a negative term or whatever, but people that want to play a certain style of gameplay, if they're more risk adverse or whatever, and they just want to stay in safe systems and make their money and experience kind of the way I don't want to sound like a dick, but the way kind of Chris Roberts explained it in last week's Answer the Call, where he was like, I don't want players to feel like they're winning and losing. I want them to just experience the universe. Well, I think that's more of like what the casual player would want to do. But then there's the hardcore player who wants to destroy people, or there's the hardcore PvPer that wants to destroy people or whatever. And creating these areas where this person can go versus that person is important. But that's where this could be flawed if they don't do it well. You have to create the want and the need for that player that is comfortable staying in safe space where his insurance is covered to really, man, I really want to go out there and get that thing that I can't get in this place, but I have to risk something to get there. Right?
Yeah.
Because then you create it where the pirate or the player, what type of player that's out in that space, takes advantage of the people that are coming from the safe space there. And then you create this balance, and then that safe player becomes better and more comfortable, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, there's some aspect of this which, like, you can point to EVE Online, where they have, high sec, medium, or high sec, low sec, null sec.
Yeah.
And if you go into low sec or null sec, you can get much more valuable ores. You can take control of space. You can do things like moon mine. Well, that's not a thing, but anyways, you can get a lot more money for being a null sec, but you're also at higher risk. So I think it might be a similar system in Star Citizen, where the idea is the low risk systems have been exploited by the NPCs, so the chances of finding high value ores or high density amounts of high value ores is going to be much, much lower. So one of the risk adverse players might think, well, it's kind of annoying having to go out and mine for an hour or two and get a little tiny bit of this ore, or I could go out to a tier 3 system, tier 4 system, mine for 20 minutes and get the same amount of ore. And so that might push them further and further out.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is the creating the balance to push those people out is so important. But also have it so that you get that heart pumping feeling. I mean, that's just what I want. Is that necessarily what Star Citizen needs? I don't know. You know, I know what I want, but what the game needs is totally different. What are your thoughts on just like the item insurance? Like, we know what ship insurance is essentially going to be like, and now it's whether or not it's allowed in a system or not, like how Eve has done it, and how I believe we've heard this mentioned before as well. Now, item insurance is a little bit different. They don't have LTI on it. So they can do whatever they want. Like they don't have this base of the LTI like we had with the ships. So they can go any direction, and they can make it fun, and they can make it challenging, and they could tier the insurance as well, right?
I believe the insurance tiers are going to be the same for everything. So, you have tier 1 through 4 insurance for your cargo, for your items, for your ships. I seem to recall there was a fourth thing, but I can't remember what it is, because hull, item, cargo, and then, or maybe I'm just going insane. But anyways,
item,
it was
cargo.
basically so basically, it was the same idea. Is all 3 of them would have the multiple tiers, and you pay more for each tier. And for cargo, it would be a matter of, how do you prevent somebody from loading up on something ridiculously expensive and then flying out to their buddy with a cargo ship and ejecting over for them to scoop up, and then the first person just goes back and goes, "Oh yeah, I was mugged. Well, ransomed, and they took all my stuff, and then they just get paid back for all the stuff that was just stolen from, quote unquote, stolen from." So there's a certain amount of aspect which you did bring up, which is how do you detect somebody trying to scam the system, and how do you actually pay back this stuff without kind of making it a insurance scam thing, or it's a bit of a balancing act with that.
Yeah. And I mean, for me, the way you do the tiers is really important. Because for me, the most important thing, again, about ship item insurance, or any item insurance, even cargo insurance, is that you don't duplicate the item necessarily.
Yeah.
You can duplicate the item in the highest tier insurance, where you're basically paying for the item again, maybe at a discount, right? 80% or something like that of what the item would actually cost is what you're insuring, and you're going to get it back in a reasonable amount of time, right?
Yeah.
So
that was another aspect, which is I think it should be separated from the tier system, which is the amount of time it takes to get a payback. So,
this is where I want to go next.
It's you don't want to have it where you go out, you do something dumb with your fighter, you go, oh crap, it blew up, and then you go back and 5 minutes later you have a new fighter. At the same time, you don't want it to be, you go back and you get told, oh yeah, you'll have a new fighter in 2 weeks. Suddenly somebody who's only got a basic package where they've got 1 or 2 ships or something like that, they're going to be like, well, crap, I'm out of a ship, I can't play for the next 2 weeks. So you kind of have to find a balancing point between the two.
That is the key of the discussion for this insurance, and where I want to really I'll unless you have anything else you want to bring up, I'll probably let you go and bring on the next caller. But where I really want to see this discussion go for the rest of the show is what should the punishments be, right? So you lose something, you die, you're supposed to get punished. What are the level of punishments? What should they be? And for me, the thing that I dislike and I really want to see go away from the insurance system is that, and this did come up in a lot of the conversations post-show last week, is that people were comfortable with the punishment being waiting. And that's not something I'm comfortable with for insurance at all. I don't think it's good for the game to say, okay, you've lost your ship and all its components. You can get them all back, but you have to sit and wait for X amount of time. It doesn't matter how long it is. What that player is likely going to do is they're going to say, especially if it's a specialized ship, right? Which most of the ships are specialized. If that ship is specialized and they were out mining, let's say, what are they going to do? They're going to turn the game off. And they're going to go do something else.
Yeah.
Is that what we really want? Or do we want to say, you don't get it back in a certain amount of time. We give you the money, and you have to go earn it back. What if you just got paid out? Right?
Actually, that's a fair point, which is getting a loan, basically, to get your ship back.
Or, this was also brought up, when you get into an accident in your car, what happens, guys? Are you out of a car completely if you have insurance? No. They give you a loaner. And you ride around in that loaner car for however long it takes for your car to be repaired. So that should be a part of the item or the ship insurance. Right? So you get it and you get to go back and you get to play the game some more. Now, is that too low risk? I don't know. That's to be left up to be discussed, but I think it's something to certainly talk about, is that the loaner being a thing. Because what I don't want is I don't want to be sitting in Star Citizen doing nothing. I want to go out and experience the game like Chris wants us to experience. You're not going to experience the game sitting in your hangar waiting to play because you don't have your ship. That's boring. That sucks. Right?
So one thing that I was thinking about in regards to this, which is it does kind of come into some of what you're talking about, is for the higher end ships. So, you go out and lose a fighter, then, you can get a replacement or you can get something back reasonably quickly, or they have some method of being able to keep you in the game. But then if you go out and do something stupid in your Idris or an Orion or a Javelin, they should punish you with a time gate on that and be like, no, this is going to take a while to get back because you did something stupid in it. And it's supposed to be a part of the game economy, that these things are slow to produce. They're rare. You shouldn't be able to have, another one just popped out for you in, an hour or something like that.
And to be fair, a loaner should probably only be for certain ships. Like, I don't think you should get a loaner Idris for an Idris, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it should be 1-to-1. But the situation that the loaner really comes into play is, what if a player only has one ship? What if a player only has a couple ships and one of them doesn't have a quantum drive? Things like that, where those situations might not happen long term in Star Citizen, but I think a loaner is a good thing. But yeah. All right, Kerradeph. Do you have anything else you want to say? Sorry.
I was just thinking on that note, they could have a system which, looks at the assets that a player has.
Yeah.
When it does the payout. So, somebody dies, they've got 7 other Hornets. Okay, you can wait on this Hornet to be returned. Well, sorry, 7 other Hornets and a whole fleet of other ships. They can wait. If somebody dies and they've got, they just lost their Aurora and they had, like an Aurora, and
you can easily get an Aurora loaner.
Yeah, so it's like they would loan you an Aurora and you can continue on your way. So it would be a little bit like a credit rating almost, saying, how much does this person have? Are they able to maintain themselves with what they have?
Yep.
But yeah, anyways, that was basically my point. I'll let you...
All right, man. Well, great call. And apparently you are a first-time caller. I thought you had called in before.
Yep.
All right, well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm glad you came on and called. The first-time callers are good. They're exciting. We need more.
Yep, it's interesting.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too.
Bye. All right, and our next caller is Shadowhunter255. And get his name up on screen. There we go. Shadowhunter, welcome to Answer the Call, man. What's up?
How are you, Twerk?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this insurance. So I've only been playing Star Citizen for about 6 months. So
Okay.
I haven't been playing that long. But I've been going back because I've had 3 weeks off work because of my shoulder. I've been going back and watching a lot of the old Ask the Devs or sort of these sort of questions. And I've sort of been catching up on this. And this insurance questions come up a fair bit.
Everybody really wants to know what it is because it's out there, but I don't know if there's enough of it out there because they're still building it out as we speak, right? And that's kind of why it's a good time to discuss it. Is let's get our opinions out there and all that.
Yeah, because it's better now that we let our thoughts be out there than let them design the system and then change it later.
And then yell at them when they're like, "Why would you do it that way?" You know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not like Star Citizen's community is prone to over-exaggerate sometimes. But what I'd like to say is the ships that we've brought for real-world money. So, for example, I have a Bennett Merchant, I have a Aurora, Mustang, all that sort of stuff. Anything that you've brought with real-world money, I think should be guaranteed LTI. I think this whole 6 months insurance, 5-year insurance thing, I think it's...
But it wouldn't sell then. They couldn't sell it for a premium then, man. What would they... How would they get more money?
Well, see, this is the thing. And okay, so for example, my Bennett Merchant, right? I brought that off the grey market because for me to buy it from Star Citizen was roughly an extra $100 and something, and that was American. And now I'm in Australia, so you're adding a good $175 Australian to that price.
Yeah.
So I could get it on the grey market for cheaper, and I could get it with LTI than what they were going to sell it for me off the ship sale that happened in November.
Yeah.
So I went and I brought it through the grey market. So I really do think that they are sort of cutting their nose when they turn around and they start marking up the prices of the ships. I get they want to sort of encourage people to jump in early, but if I can buy a Bennett Merchant on the grey market for like $165, which is what I got it for, but they're selling it on their website for $350, and I can get LTI and everything on the grey market, I'm like, well, why would I not grab that one? So I tend to think that what they should do is stop marking up prices, sell it all for the set price, regardless of when you buy it, give everybody LTI in anything that you've actually brought, and then keep it like it is now with the shipper insurance. So your hull, for example, but make it so that if you're constantly claiming insurance, then it takes a little bit longer and longer and longer, because you've got to remember that we're supposedly getting ship rentals, supposed to be, later this year. So you can always make it so that if someone has to wait 5 days for a ship, for example, they can go and rent one from the ship rentals and they can get back out in the universe.
But why? I hate the idea of the waiting being the punishment. Why not, if somebody constantly makes claims, make it more expensive? And then, make it more expensive. And then eventually, if you keep doing it, this was another thing that was brought up in our discussion on Thursday on my way to work by French Tickler, was if you make so many insurance claims, you get into a ton of accidents or you get a lot of tickets, at least in the United States. I don't know how it works in other countries, and you can let me know. But you go on to high-risk insurance, where they accept everybody, but your fee is 4 times as high, right?
Yeah,
so this prevents the here's take my ship and insurance fraud thing, and it also prevents, it also makes the idea of being a pirate or somebody going into doing PvP aspects a lot where it's risky. It's a costly way to play a game, but it's also high risk because you're constantly taking down ships and salvaging them, and there's high reward as well. But yeah, so what do other countries do? What does Australia do?
So in Australia, if you haven't had an accident within 5 years, you get a discount on your premium.
Okay.
Apart from that, you have standard insurance, which depending on the value of the car, depending on how old it is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, I think that idea with obviously making it more expensive actually has a lot of merit too. If you want to punish them that way, I think there should be some sort of punishment for constantly having your ship blown up. Because obviously that's just going to stop people from doing pad ramming and stuff like that.
Yep.
But I was going to say, but you also got to remember too, is that when these capital ships come into the game, you're going to need to get deckhands. You're going to need people that are going to be able to do the engineering thing, stuff like that. So if they are waiting for their ship, and for example, like an Idris, I don't think an Idris should pop out in 5 minutes. I think you should have to wait a decent time for that thing to be built, because obviously that does make it a little bit more rare. You could always go and do jobs with someone else's capital ship or someone else's hammerhead or whatever it may be, and you can get a fee or you paid your wage while you wait for your ship. So I do think there is going to be other options. But as for this design your own ship and selling components and that, I'm really against it, because I see it as a bit of a cash grab when it comes to Star Citizen. I think it's CIG trying to make some extra money. If CIG, look, if any of the guys in the office are watching this, I don't care if they keep doing concept ships, even after the game comes out. If that's how they have to fund the game, and they keep selling these concept ships and giving LTI with these concept ships, go for it. I'm fine with that, as long as we can buy them in game as well. But when you start going through and you start selling components and changing the base model of the ship to be something else, it's going to get messy.
Or massively insuring components and then cargo and this and that. It's just when does it stop, and then where, because where's the risk at that point? When is there risk versus reward in the game? Because no matter what, if your style of gameplay is to not be risky, and you don't want to go and do those risky things, that's fine. But there's definitely a sect of the player base that is pirates, and that there needs to be that for them, right? And yes, can a pirate kill another player and gain a reward from them? Sure. But you have to think about the overall PvP market, or the overall PvP aspects of the game as well, where if all the ships were perfectly insured, and this is something I want to discuss as well, if there was no risk, there's a positive and a negative, right? You don't get that heart pumping action where, man, I killed this guy and I ruined his day, or man, I died and I risked everything and I lost, or man, I risked everything and I actually won. So that great feeling. But the one thing that you actually lose from it being even a tiny bit risky is that you're not going to see these crazy meta amazing builds for PvP, because people won't necessarily want to risk those items, right? So the highest tier items you may not see in PvP, at least in the beginning, right? Maybe when PvP players become rich, which they tend to be in at least games that I've played, you'll see these crazy builds come into play. And who you might watch on Twitch or on YouTube is these hardcore PvP players that show you the builds that they use and how they use them and so on. And then your goal is to go out there and experience the video game to get to where that person is. Not saying I will ever be that person. I probably won't. But do I want that in my video game? Absolutely. So it's interesting.
Like earlier today, I was thinking about going through, and I've got an arrow, and I was thinking about replacing the arrow with size 3 lasers on it, because I was going through and doing some bounty missions, and the size 1 laser just doesn't seem to cut mustard sometimes.
Yeah.
But for me to put the lasers on my arrow was going to cost me roughly around $20,000 or something. And I'm like, look, I'm okay spending that sort of money now.
Yeah.
But I'm like, well, but is it worth it? Because at the moment the economy is not there, and yada yada yada. So I just don't want them to start selling components and stuff like that, because I just think it's going to cause people to be pay for win. It's going to sort of make it, like these. It's going to take some of the grind out of the game.
That's the most important thing, is that it takes the game away. And a lot of the arguments are, well, if I want to take the game away from myself, that's fine. But the thing is if you're not out there grinding, then the people that are out there trying to take advantage of you grinding don't get the gameplay either. It's not all about you, right? Necessarily, certain people that think that way. Like, I get it. My opinion is my opinion, and the way I want to be the game is the way I want the game to be. But in the end, if we're not out there playing the game, then the not the economy, but the symbiosis of the game doesn't work, right? You need to have casual players or non-PvP players going to space where there is PvP so the pirates can kill those players and so on. And I know the major factor here is the 90 or 9 NPCs to every one player. But you guys know in your heart of hearts that we're still going to drive this game as the player, right?
Yeah. And a lot of those NPCs are going to be taking up the jobs that we don't necessarily want to do.
Yeah.
Like, for example, a lot of them are going to be going through and you're going to be able to hire out to ships so that you can have crew. They're also talking about these NPCs going through and doing the menial jobs like cleaning up and repairing the space station or whatever it may be. So I'm not so worried about the whole NPC side of things. I was thinking that, for example, with the cargo insurance, if they did want to bring it in, maybe making it so that you actually have to lodge a insurance claim and write down who it was that attacked you, maybe, and that could stop. Like that way, then the computer, they can say, okay, I've got this name, I'm going to put a bounty out on this player for attacking, and that would help curb the people doing the insurance fraud, because it'd be like, hey, I'm going to dob my mate in to get a bounty put in his head if he tries to, and maybe have it like bounty hunter, so like he gets 10% of the cargo value. So if it was a ship that got ripped off for like $1 million, he gets like $100,000 or something.
That's something we also discussed is every time your ship explodes, there's a black box, or anytime your ship is boarded, like whatever, there's a black box, right, on all airplanes. Why wouldn't? And there is. We've seen them in the gameplay in Star Citizen. What if there are, let's say, 10 insurance companies out there, and some missions on the mission boards are done by them, and that those missions would be retrieve this black box from this destroyed ship, and we already have that. But what the reward wouldn't just be for the player who's doing the mission. The reward would also be to the player who is destroyed. So you get the information out there on what happened, so you get your items returned to you or whatever, and that's at the same token, the person who killed you has now received a bounty from that insurance company, and it gets higher and higher and higher, right? Instead of it just being like automatic, maybe it's more than that.
Well, that's something that EVE Online does with their kill reports. So I'm not sure if you've played EVE, but EVE Online has EVE Online has a website that actually has every ticket, and it mentions who killed you, their name, your name, what the ships were that were both destroyed, the ship that destroyed you, the weapons that were used, what was lost for cargo. It's a detailed report. It's quite good because obviously if you get blown up, you know who it was that blew you up, so you can go and kill them later. But yeah, so something like that maybe, and that would then obviously help curb the whole insurance fraud, because, hey, it's no longer a case of here's my cargo, insurance scam sort of thing, because all of a sudden they're going to have their name plastered all over the internet, and they can hook that up to the bounty rewards.
And it's like there's that part of the gameplay right now where if you turn off the comm array, then your criminal activity isn't necessarily reported. Okay, well that's that's part of it, but maybe destroying the black box or taking the black box yourself so you can't be reported is another aspect of it, right? Where sure, turning off the comm array is the automatic failsafe, but then taking care of the, like, covering your tracks up. I like the idea of there being tracks to cover for bounty hunting gameplay and things longer term down the end of the game, you know?
Well, they were talking about putting in, I think it was one of the videos I was watching a couple of weeks ago, they were saying that they were talking about putting in so that your engines leave trails that last a certain period of time.
Yeah, the
So,
quantum
for example,
travel trail or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for example, say you jump from Daymar to Port Al Azhar, for example, or like the opposite to what we're just doing. You can go through and you can say, okay, this is the destroyed ship. Here's the wreck. And now there's a quantum signature that is now leaving towards Grim Hex. I'm going to follow it and find out who it was. I like that. And I'd also like it so that, like, for example, and this is what they're going to be doing with salvage and stuff, is where you can go through and strip parts off ships that have been destroyed. Yeah. And then you can take them and possibly use them, like with the Idris, that great big rail cannon that's on the bottom of the Idris. For the Idris
K
M
or M, yeah. The K is the upgrade kit for it.
Yep, M for the military. I was going to say that rail cannon. It is, if you find that in the game, it will actually fit on the Idris P. The mount for it is actually there, and they also said with the Idris K, it's going to be vice versa for the P to M, yada yada yada. I like the fact that you can go through and you can start salvaging weapon parts and stuff from ships that have been destroyed. That's obviously going to be a little bit of a risk reward because, hey, the person that blew that ship up might still be hanging around.
Yeah.
And then obviously depending on how badly damaged the weapon is as to whether it works or not. So
yeah.
There's that too, but I probably should let someone else jump in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we'll probably move on to the next caller because we've talked for a while, but really good call and I appreciate it. It was a nice discussion.
No worries, man. Enjoy yourself. Thanks.
Thanks, Shadow. Now, before I bring in the next caller, I real quick want to bring up that in that insurance FAQ, I don't know how the fuck I missed this. I thought I read it straight through. That they did, and this is what Kerradeph was talking about in the previous call, was that there is different risks policies for different areas. So risk level 1 would be in the safest systems, all the way up to risk level 5 being the most dangerous system. That is insurable for cargo or upgrades. So there's different risk levels is how they're doing it. So we'll see. It is old FAQ, and I'm sure that stuff is going to change a little bit, but that does confirm that, like, from CIG that they're thinking of doing it that way. But anyway, our next caller is iddkfa, and we will bring him on. IDD, welcome to Answer the Call. How you doing, man?
Hello. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing good.
So what do you think about this whole insurance thing, man? What are your thoughts?
I don't want to talk about how much I personally dislike that you can insure what feels like almost everything, because it's coming and nothing we say will change that.
Okay. I agree, but I also disagree because I think it's fine as long as they do it right. The way ships are insured it should not be the way everything else should be insured. If we go that route, I think I'm okay. Right? I don't want to see LTI on components at all. As long as there's a difference, I'm cool. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, I get what you say, but I think it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming 100%. I mean, they talked about they're discussing item insurance now, and I'm sure they'll go to cargo insurance after that. So it's already in the works as far as we know, you know?
All I hope is that we might be able to positively influence what they are doing.
Exactly, which is the point of the show, you know?
Yeah. So I get that we need some protection or compensation for losses, but I think it has to be a good balance between risk and reward.
Absolutely.
If you don't run the risk of losing something, it actually loses value, like personal value for obtaining it. I mean, how attached are you to something that maybe was hard to get, but you know you would never lose again.
Yeah, like, would you imagine, let's say for the first 2 years of Star Citizen after its release, do you think there will be an in-game market for players trading ships? Probably not, because the ships, I don't know if they'll have any significant value, because you can't lose them, because we've all bought them.
There might be a market,
but it won't be as great
to...
as it would be 5 years from now, where a majority of the ships in game are probably purchased in game.
Yeah, right. It's just for
5 years from release.
The occasion you might miss one ship and you just buy it.
Yep.
From a market maybe to a lesser value, or you buy a ship instead of just the stock version of that ship, a ship that includes some kind of components already.
Yeah. The big thing for me is, like you said, there has to be risk, there has to be reward, and for me, I just want the risk to be more like, damn, I have to go back out there and grind again. Or at the very least, if I buy the highest level insurance and I get most of my money back for my component, that I have to go out there and get that item again. Right?
I don't actually like the idea that you have that kind of insurance. It's like
me neither, but it's inevitable.
I pay more insurance, but it will cover more, because the game for me right now is very much UEC driven. The your money, your UEC is pretty much everything.
Yep.
Outside of the actual fun of playing the game. So just spending more money at some point isn't an obstacle anymore.
I agree. And that's what I meant by, remember on the last caller where I talked about the PvP and how longer term, when these PvP players become rich, then they will insure these incredibly expensive items because they can afford to. And then it doesn't matter anymore. Right?
Yes.
So they'll have these like crazy PvP builds, but there's negatives that come with that too, is that there's now no risk.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, the pirate gameplay or piracy gameplay was the ultimate Star Citizen hardcore game.
Yeah. I agree. And how do you make that fun for that player while also making the game fun for a player that doesn't want to engage in that activity? Because the most important thing is that for piracy to be fun, is they need to come across that person who doesn't want to engage in piracy or PvP necessarily, right? That's the only way that it's fun for both players. And again, I'm not necessarily a pirate. I don't want to play piracy gameplay. I don't necessarily want to kill or take from every person that comes across me. But I do think it's important to have that balance.
Yeah, and a true PvP player wants the other person to fight back and not just roll over run. Because he says, "Oh, I don't lose anything. Why should I bother?"
Yeah, why should I waste my time? You know. So you have to create that scenario where that player would like to get out into that area where there is a risk for PvP, not necessarily a guarantee. Space is big, right? So what's good about space is that you're going to feel the risk a lot, but you may not necessarily come across it. And when you do come across it, it's that insane oh shit moment, you know?
Yeah, when it happened unexpected.
Yeah, and then you make the choice, do I run or do I fight? And I feel like in a lot of cases the player would want to run, and that's okay, but sometimes they're not going to have a choice and they're going to have to fight. And are they going to win every time? I don't know, maybe not. And is that a good experience for that player? It's tough, right? It's a really tough balancing act, and that's why most games have leaned more towards their casual player base that don't like losing their stuff. Nobody likes losing their stuff, but if you create that experience, that's enjoyable. And the thing is that player has to succeed sometimes. They can't die every time,
And look at the games who went really, really casual with their game. I mean, even the most casual players constantly yell for new content, new items, more of that, more of this, because there's nothing to lose. At some point, you have everything.
Yep. Exactly. So going out to, let's just call it nullsec, right? Is that the non-safe place in EVE? I don't know.
Security.
Like zero security. I would imagine that's what that means. So yeah. The nullsec space, that's where the content is for that player. Okay, well, you've run out of content in this safe space. Well, now it's time to come out into this dangerous place. But the most important thing is that there's risk for that player, and I think that's where insurance comes in, and that there's reward for both the player who's hanging out there waiting for that new guy to come into that nullsec space, but as well as for the new guy who goes to nullsec space, that the reward is worth the risk, right? It's got to be worth it for everybody. And that person who's new has to succeed a certain percentage of the time in order for them to be comfortable going out there. It has to be, they need to make money doing it as well. They can't just constantly lose, Obviously, if they're a bad player, they're not going to have a good experience or whatever. If they never learn, some people just never learn how to get better or how to succeed. That's just going to happen sometimes. And sometimes players' experiences won't be great. But I definitely agree with you that eventually you run out of content because you didn't lose the content that you had there, or it wasn't hard enough to get to because you didn't have any hiccups on the way because the game was too casual.
You actually won the game.
Yeah, there's no wins and losses. I mean, when there's nothing to do, you've won. And right. Star Citizen will have that experience as well if it remains too casual. And I don't think it will, but once they start talking about insurance of all these different things, it's like, all right, like how much are we going to insure here, and how much risk are we going to still leave out there for the game? So I think it's really important.
Yeah, and think about it. If you're a dedicated PvP player, if they don't come to you, you go to them.
And in the case of Star Citizen, I think we will have to go to them. And I put myself in the casual player realm because I'm going to be playing more of the casual style gameplay, the mining, the cargo trading, that stuff. Even though hardcore versus casual, it's just syntax. Whatever your definition of it is what it is. But it's more, when we say hardcore or not, I think we mean PvP versus non-PvP. And I'm probably going to play the more non-PvP routes of the game, but I'm going to have to go to nullsec space because I also want to make the most profit possible. Right?
Yep, right.
So, I can have the choice of sitting back, relaxing, and enjoying the Star Citizen views and experience in high-sec space and make my profit the way I make it. There will be profit there, of course, to make, but it won't be as high, and there may not be as cool items. And you know what? Those players that sit there and grind in high-sec space, guess what? The guy like me who risks goes out into nullsec space and grabs some maybe mineral or find a cool item at a wreck. I bring that back and sell it to that player. Right? And it's all this big, beautiful loop because the players who are going to sit there, and maybe that player who is buying UEC because he doesn't want to go out there and risk it, or he doesn't have the time to. Well, I go out there, I risk it, I take my time, and I sell. I sell the stuff to them, and then it's this beautiful like symbiosis, I think.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to risk versus reward, and insurance is the key to that.
Yeah, I agree. So what I hope how they will implement it is by using insurance tiers depending on the area you had lost your ship or cargo or component or whatever.
Yeah.
For example, if it happened in a starter area, I think you should get back your ship as it was and maybe 80 to 100% of what your cargo was worth. In a medium risk area, you get the stock version of your ship back, maybe 50 up to 80% of what your components were worth, but not the components themselves, just the UEC for it. And for high risk areas, you should lose everything, including your ship, unless it was the last one you had.
Or you can go back and retrieve it yourself. Let's not take that part out of it, obviously, right? You can always go back and retrieve the stuff. It's just not automatically lost. It should persist in game for a while and could be picked up.
Of course.
Obviously, but I just figured we'd put that out there just in case.
And I mean, of course, those are magical numbers and could be tweaked, and you could add more tiers in between.
Yep.
But have something in place that not only increases the gameplay difficulty, but also increases risk and reward.
Yes,
so
I agree.
I think my solution is a bit more reserved than getting a loaner ship, which would work as well, but definitely not the quote-unquote hardcore you lose everything approach.
Yeah.
Because technically that would work as well, because CIG said you could apply for jobs without having a ship yourself.
Yeah. No, I agree. And is there anything else you want to do before I let you go? Anything else you want to add?
One thing, a little bit off topic. Once Squadron 42 is released, stop selling ships. We gave you legs, now learn how to walk.
Okay. Savage. All right, IDD.
To real. See you, buddy.
Later, man. Great call. Now, before I bring in the next caller, I kind of want to respond to what he said and give my kind of list of tiers of insurance that I think would be really great. And I agree. I agree that it should be done based on where you go, but tweak it a little bit differently. I think you should buy tiers of insurance. Okay. And I think it should just be based on that. So tier 1, let's say, would be you are secured in these level of risked space, right? So tier 1 would be the lowest tier. It would be the cheapest, and you would be insured in safe space only. And after that, maybe in medium space, they would be comfortable sending out an insurance agent to potentially retrieve any of your items. Ergo, I think that's the right word to use, escape from Tarkov type insurance, right? So my insurance I've paid, and my items would be insured if the items could have been retrieved potentially, right? And there's a percentage chance, some algorithm that's done, whether or not I get my items back. But or the items are always retrieved if they weren't taken by the player who killed you. Okay. Second tier would be, a little bit further into that. You're fully insured, and then in, light and medium risk space, and then not at all in high risk. And you can go from there. But the big thing for me is maybe getting your ship back always. The item insurance, I would prefer in all cases that item insurance is given back with a check. And you have to go out and get those weapons. I saw somebody else mention in Twitch chat, if you've tweaked weapons, and that will likely be a major factor in what weapons are good versus others, that you obviously wouldn't get that weapon back tweaked, and that would be a factor. But I would really rather see you, if you lost the ship, then you would do your insurance claim, get your base ship back, and you would have to grind, not to necessarily get the money back, but maybe grind to get the reputation or get back to the place where you bought those items. Because I think we know, even in game now, they're kind of showing us that this item may be sold here, but not there, right? And so on. So we have one more caller left. I'm going to bring him on now His name is SgtMaj. So we're going to bring on SgtMaj. And hey, SgtMaj, what's up? Welcome to Answer the Call. Good morning. First time caller? Another one?
Yes, sir.
Nice. Welcome, dude. So what do you think? What do you think about our discussion we're having about ship insurance?
Well, Twerk, before I get started on that, I want to say I watch your show every Sunday. I'm calling from Fayetteville, North Carolina, man. I love what you do. You're brilliant. Keep it going.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. You're brilliant.
Hey, Twerk, I'm not really good at this stuff. I would tell you that my first game I ever played is this game, so it's not a lot of reference I'm going to be able to utilize, but I think I want to bring up
Give me your feelings, man. That's all you need.
Sir. Well, one thing I want to bring up about Star Citizen, I'm with a small organization, 45 members. And one of the things we think about when we think about insurance, and I know you talked about before that insurance should not be a punishment for delay.
Yeah.
But coming from a tactical view of it, if we're a small organization and we're going up against a large organization that has javelins and edges and all that good stuff, as a defendant organization, I think it's important. If I was to take out a javelin, I want to know it's going to be a long period of time before that javelin come back into gameplay, giving my organization some type of foothold.
I agree. Now, I agree 100%, and this comes into play in my previous video games experience as well, where I played a game called Ultima Online. It's very, very old, and they had this mechanic where if you killed another player that you were warring against, they would go into stat loss. So basically their stats would be lower and they wouldn't be effective in the fight. So when you took them out, they were out of the fight, basically. Okay? And I agree with you. So coming from the tactical perspective, nothing that I said actually changes that. Because let's say you've blown up a javelin. Now that organization has lost their javelin. And now that organization that you're fighting against has to go and buy another one if they've lost it. Or they have to... Yeah, let's use the javelin as an example. With ships, we know this won't happen. It will be the waiting period for the ships. And you can upgrade that waiting period. And like Pyro NL brings up in chat, unless they obviously have one that's spare. But hey, if you're up against an org that has lots of spare ships, it's going to be tough for an org like yourself of 45 members to maybe win that fight. And that's just going to happen sometimes, right? If they grinded and did their work to have a bunch of ships, good on them. But where I was going more was, let's use a ship as an example, even though we know that this is not necessarily how it's going to work. The javelin is blown up, and you're still in the middle of the fight, and they don't have another one. Well, what they would have to do is they would have to purchase another one. So they would have to fly to where you have to purchase it, and that ship would have to be built. So it's still the same case of the waiting game for the insurance. But what I don't want is I don't want you to go, okay, I lost, and then turn the game off. I want you to go, okay, I lost, I'm mad, maybe I'll turn the game off for now, but I'm going to come back on later, and I'm going to grind my way back and get that javelin back instead of waiting for it. You know what I mean?
I agree with that. I mean, that's a solid and valid point, because at the end of the day, the main focus is individual player enjoyment of the game. So absolutely.
Yeah. Now, is that going to piss somebody off? Is that going to suck? Yeah. It is. You know, it really is. But either way, it's going to suck. And will we rather have somebody go, well, I can't get my javelin back for 3 days, so I guess I'll turn the game off for 3 days? Or will we rather them go out and get, like, you would get the money back or a portion of the money back, so you don't have to grind as much to get it back, but you still got to go back in the game and play it a little bit so you can get it back. You know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think with this insurance, they're going to have a lot of work to do to get this up to par, because, I mean, I got to tell you, that was a good, valid point. I mean, I'm still concerned about that wait period to getting the advantages, because a lot of these organizations are small. They want to be able to make an impact, and knowing that, you know, they just don't keep getting flooded and never see a foothold or an advantage on their part. I mean, their tactics may be excellent, where these organizations with hundreds and hundreds of ships just don't know how to work them, you know?
I really think you're gonna be. I really think CIG wants what you want. They want a skilled player. I don't know if you're great at the game or not. It doesn't matter. I based on your enthusiasm and the discussion you're trying to have, I know that you're going to practice. And with you and your org, you guys are going to come up with tactics and bust your butt. And you hope that you're rewarded by that. And I think Star Citizen wants you to be rewarded by that. So if you're more skilled than, and I always use Test Squadron as an example because they're so large. If you end up coming across a large group of Test Squadron people and they feel like bullying you or whatever, not that they would or wouldn't, I don't know, just using them as an example, is that if you have superior tactics and you're better at aiming your ship and using your missiles at the right time and balancing your power and all that stuff, you should win that fight. Even though you may have less players, you know what I mean? And
absolutely.
So long as the reward is there for you to beat them, you would be willing to risk to fight them. And that's what's important. But you don't want it to be too risky, even if the reward is good, where you wouldn't do it. And that's where the balance between ship insurance and item insurance and cargo insurance, all this stuff is so important. And again, I will always go back to the point that I'm making, and you guys may not feel the same way as me, is I want to feel my heart pump. And so I want there to be that risk. I want to feel like I will lose something. The feeling of loss is the most important thing for a video game for me. It may not be that way for you. So when engaging in PvP, and to make that choice of whether or not you're going to fight or not, if there is no risk, the answer is always whatever. It doesn't matter, right? If I end up fighting and die, whatever. If I end up winning, whatever. So the guy who is engaging and trying, like let's say, for example, you who's trying to go after, let's say, for example, Test Squadron, if Test Squadron just didn't care because there was no risk because they were so rich, that wouldn't necessarily be an enjoyable fight for you either. You know?
Well said, sir. Well said.
Yeah. But I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add? How long have you been playing Star Citizen? How long have you backed and everything?
Twerk, I've been a backer since I retired from the military since 2013.
Thank you for your service, first off.
Oh, thank you very much for saying so, sir. And been loving every aspect of it. Been watching you and Taurus. I mean, you're one of my favorites, if not the favorite. I love what you do every Sunday. I love hearing your opinion.
Yes, you are. I know. I'm your favorite. You could say it. It's okay.
You're my favorite, Twerk. But I love you and I appreciate everything you do, man. And I'll tell you one thing before I go. I love hearing your opinion because your opinion is always compassionate about the game. Thank you.
Yeah, it may not always be right, but I definitely care.
Yes, you do. Yes, sir.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for calling. I really appreciated it.
My pleasure, Twerk.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, I think that was our episode for Answer the Call. I don't see any other callers. No late bring-ins, but I do really want to. I really want to hear your feedback about this episode in particular and kind of how we went about it and what we talked about. I really want to hear what you guys think about insurance. So for me, again, I will finish with, I want a tiered system, both that you can purchase, that is based on where you go. So if I'm in this system and I die, I'm fully covered. If I'm in this system and I die, I'm not covered at all. And that's what the prices would be based on. And the amount of coverage would also be based into that price. And again, the numbers really don't matter necessarily. We don't have to get into specifics yet, because all that stuff will be balanced and changed. But I really want it to be more geared towards giving the money back, so you're more in the game playing it instead of, well, if you wait 20 minutes, if you wait 2 hours, if you wait 4 hours, you'll get the item back. I also like the idea of some version of Escape from Tarkov insurance where you don't get the item back if it was taken off of your ship. And maybe that can be in one of the tiers. So I really, really enjoyed this show, and I'm really happy I'm doing this. And I think the Noobifier is still here in chat. And he has some videos coming out. I hope I'm not ruining anything for him, but he's got some. He's been posting them on Twitter, like teasing them, where he's gonna be. He's got a bunch of joysticks. He has like every possible joystick right now, and he's gonna be comparing some of the higher end joysticks. And for next week, I do think we have him confirmed. I'll have to double confirm if we have him. But next week's gonna be kind of a. I call them like a gimme show where you guys call in and we discuss your how you play Star Citizen, your control schemes. So I think it'd be a really good timing to have Noobifier on, since every now and then it's nice to have a guest on and have Noobifier on, and then you call in and share your control schemes and what you like about yours. I think it would be cool. Not